Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to yet another episode of Air It Out here at Hub Taku, brought to you by your host Vonnie. Excited about fuck, bro. See, I can't even speak properly. I'm excited as fuck about this episode, G. So this shit has been in the making for a while. And pre-pro, I was talking to my mans about this shit. This came because we was both drunk as fuck in Atlanta at AWA. We was setting up shop at this one house party, ran into each other. I was like, we need to get on an interview and stuff like that. Mans mutually agreed, and then Air It Out just stopped for a second. We was working on a couple things, as you know, you seen on the timeline, but now we back at it. Craftmatic. Had to make sure that Brody was on. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with, my brother?
You have the pleasure of speaking with the one and only Ked the Pro from the Chaotic Culture Podcast, as also a part of Inside the Mind of a Blurred and Shoko High.
Yes, sir. Shout out Inside the Mind, shout out Shogo, shout out Chaotic Culture. All three great prominent pieces right here in this anime community. This whole episode pretty much gonna be about giving you your flowers on those three. We want to start it off at the top though. The first thing we always ask with our interviews are, I want to give you the space to air it out on one specific topic. Literally anything you want to speak to right now, feel free to let me know. You could come in and say, bro, I just watched this episode of this anime. This shit was fire. You could come in and say, y'all was listening to this new Kali Uchis album, bro. Here's what I'm feeling about it. You could step in and say whatever the fuck you want, so long as it don't like disrespect nobody. We all the way good.
Word. So first thing I want to get off my chest real quick. Listen, Trigun Stampede. I know a lot of people don't like 3D anime, but hear me out. It was a phenomenal show. Oh my gosh, from start to finish, it was absolutely breathtaking. I know a lot of people wanted to see more silly Vash, just like the previous series, but I think that this series was very important in defining who Vash really is as a character, and just some of the stuff that he had to go through and still going through, even towards the end of the series. Like, if you have not watched Trigun Stampede and you are a fan of Trigun, I implore you, please go watch this shit. It is a phenomenal show. Again, I know a lot of people, they might be adverse to 3D anime, and trust me, I am too in some spots, but this is probably one of the smoothest 3D anime that we've seen. And again, story, characters, it could get a little choppy at times, but overall, worth the experience. I promise you. Please go check it out. I promise you that you will enjoy it. As far as music, man, I will just say that I'm currently listening to a whole bunch of Kirk Franklin, because we're trying to do a music roundtable for Kirk Franklin's discography. And I'm at the very last album, which is Kingdom, which is with Music City Mavericks right now. I haven't started it yet, but if you've listened to like his entire discography, you can tell like the evolution starting from the 90s, even all the way up to now. I will say that New Nation Project is still probably his best album.
I can see that. That. Bro, New Nation Project was the one that really put him on the map, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, it really was. And then the rebirth of Kirk Franklin is almost just as good. Those two albums I could probably play back to back, nonstop, no skips. But I just wanted to throw that out there because, yeah, you can hear his evolution, and you can hear the music change throughout the times. And of course, it's more catered to the audiences now than they were, back then. But even still, the man knows how to make a sample and flip it to a gospel song. So I gotta give Kirk props for that.
That's a fact, Jack. My first introduction, and I'm not gonna act like I'm like Kurt Franklin Hive, like the biggest stan of him, but my first evolution, my first like just entry into Kurt Franklin's music, Any Given Sunday. This nigga Willie Beeman had the ball, chuck that shit down, and I think at that point they had at that point I was like, yo, what the fuck is this song? I'm young, I'm listening to this shit, I'm like, this shit a bop. Like, hold up. Then I went back and actually listened to it. I'm like, oh, this is gospel. My grandmama looking at me like, yeah, so you want to go to church now, don't you? I'm like, no, Mima, I don't, but I do fuck with this song, please and thank you. How did you get into Kirk Franklin?
Man, I've always been a lover of gospel music, and for those who don't know, again, I am a Christian, but I'm more of what they call the radical side. Like, if you've ever seen or if you've ever heard of Pastor like Howard John Wesley, I kind of model myself after him. Shout out to the Noops at Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, because I am a member. But he is his sermons and whatnot kind of flow with me and whatnot. But I've always loved and had an appreciation for gospel music, so I've been listening to Kurt since I was a kid. But I didn't get a chance to really sit down and listen to his entire discography until just now, because I was more of a fan of his older works than I was of his newer work. So I just decided, well, you know what? If we're doing a music roundtable on this, which should be approaching around Easter or so, I need to make
Nice.
sure that I listen to everything that he's done. So
Nice.
that's kind of how I got into that.
Nice. My thing is, were you one of the ones who came up in the church actually playing instruments and everything?
So my brother was a drum set player for the church.
Ooh,
I
okay.
was more of the choir boy, though
Ah,
we both sang in the choir. But I was one of those kids who, like, I didn't like singing in the youth and children's choir. I'd rather go to the teens choir, because back then it was split between the teen choir and the youth and children's choir, but I was too young.
right.
So obviously I waited until I got my opportunity to sing in the teen choir, and then oddly enough I became one of the directors, which was kind of scary, but that's what happens when your cousin actually leads the choir, so you just kind of fall in place. But that was more my style, though I did play drum set for a few choirs throughout my teens as well, and even into my adulthood, I still will occasionally play drums for certain churches if their musician is not there and they need a substitute. I'm there. A lot of the times, though, I'm always like on the go and I'm always busy, so I don't necessarily have the time to make a choir practice or whatnot. But I'm still available if I have the time, obviously.
Right. So now when we talk about like gospel music and things of that nature, right? First and foremost, thank you for explaining this and breaking this down, because a lot of people look at gospel and they're like, Lecrae. It's like, nah, it's deeper than that. There's a lot more to it. Like if you had to give a starter pack of gospel music for people to listen to that like might be somebody who's not typically into it that much, like
Mm-hmm.
who would you list? Because me on my side, I know Kirk Franklin. I
Uh-huh.
don't listen to Lecrae. No disrespect to him. And the only other person I really heard in that realm that I could think about is maybe like Ty Tribbett. But like past that point,
Mm,
I'm kind of like pretty green to the shit.
I got you. So I'm gonna obviously Kirk Franklin would be a good starter pack. I look, the way that he changed gospel music around is something that needs to be looked at seriously. So if you haven't checked out Kirk Franklin for some strange reason, definitely check that out. I'm going to say, if you need to hear of a choir that can like bark, then Hezekiah Walker would be one to
Yes.
start. Yes, like definitely listen to Hezekiah. The way that he crafts his songs and the way that his choirs can modulate throughout songs and whatnot. Even I struggle to keep up with some of the modulations that they do when they're singing. I'm like, I don't got the voice for that. I got a good voice, but it ain't nowhere near what they got going on over there. So definitely that. The person I also recommend, who probably has one of my favorite, if not the best gospel song ever, please be sure that you check out Fred Hammond. You can go
Fred
all the
Hammond.
way back to Commissioned and listen to him if you want, but No Weapon is still by far one of my favorite gospel songs, if not my favorite. And it got me through so much. So definitely Fred Hammond is on that. And then if I had to give a fourth, I'm going to say Yolanda Adams, just because
Yep.
her voice is very, very, very rich and very powerful and very strong, and she can invoke the spirit in just about anybody.
Yo, that's a fact, Jack. That is it's funny how you listen to all of these names now, and there's people I'm not even thinking about, like, oh, that's a gospel artist. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to say it's peppered into a lot of the secular music, but it like the way you kind of look at somebody, you don't realize like, oh, this shit right here is actually something that's a part of this group as well. It's interesting because you don't really look at it, you don't really box it in, but the message is still the same. The
Yeah.
message is still the same. The impact that it has on people is still the same. And just speaking to you right now, I could tell the passion behind that. Like that's been driving you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, absolutely. So, for those who don't know, of course, obviously, I'm a music head and I do cater more towards hip hop than anything, but I try my best to listen to all kinds of music that are related to Black people. So, I just want people to, make sure that they're aware, like, hey, I can do this on both sides. You want gospel? I got you. You want R&B? I got you. You want hip hop? I definitely got you.
I feel that. I feel that. And it's interesting because it's like I was looking at the stats and everything, looking like you've been doing this for a while. As far as like, I want to start with chaotic culture.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, did that start? What is it? 2020, I think.
2020, man, right during the pandemic.
Yeah, and that was one of my questions. I'm like, was this a pandemic baby? And I mean that in no disrespect. Like, was that something that kind of came out and then at that point it just stuck, and now we here in 2023, this shit still rocking and rolling?
Yeah, so the idea behind chaotic culture is actually almost 8 years old because I came up with an idea for a podcast in 2015 when I came out with my master's from Hampton University. Shout out to all HBCUs.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
I was trying to, I guess, find my way at that point, and I couldn't find a corporate job, even though I had a whole ass master's degree. And so I went back to work for the school, and I knew that this is something that I didn't want to do. But somebody had came up to me. They were like, "You said that your degree was in business, right?" And they was like, "Well, what was your minor?" I said, "Well, my minor was theater." They were like, "I could see that." And then on top of that, you have the voice for radio. And I'm like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, why didn't you do Scripps Howard School of Journalism?" And I'm like, "I never thought about it." And so I started talking to different people in the School of Journalism about how to, project my voice or how to use radio, and like what was some key pointers that they could give me as far as like actually crafting a podcast. And I know some of my episodes were long, but I got a lot of key pointers from those people who actually worked in the School of Journalism and in the communication side, and they've actually talked to me about what I can do, how I can use my voice, how long I should have my episodes, and things that I can incorporate. And I was like, okay, cool. So I got this idea, but when you work at a private school, money is
Yes,
always going to be
sir.
the issue, unfortunately. So for me, I was pretty much getting like paid right above poverty when I was working at Hampton University. So I could barely maintain myself throughout the entire time that I was working there. It was only when I finally got hired by Enterprise, and shout out to my job, but when I finally got hired by them, it was like, okay, now I'm seeing more money come in. I got a couple things that I want to do, but I still want to get this podcast off. So I came up with a couple of names. I started with the Society of Chaos. I was like, okay, I'm kind of not feeling that, so let's change it to something different. And then I realized that I'm a guy of culture, so I'm like, okay, let's do Chaotic Culture. And I had it with C's at first. Then I crossed into Kappa, and I'm like, okay, let's change that to K's. So I changed it to Chaotic Culture, and then I had the logo since 2019, but I still like couldn't find a way to actually get started because I wanted to start out, completely professional. I wanted all the equipment, and I realized this is going to be a slow building process. So
Yep.
I still listen to more podcasts. I still try to figure out what kind of mics that they used, and someone who does his own podcast as well called Let's Talk Bruh. Shout out to Jeremy. He shared some of his knowledge about how to actually create a podcast. So like once I decided to start slow. I'm gonna get a USB mic, and then we're gonna go from there. And then I found out my friend Kay Renee started her own podcast. I'm like, oh, if she's doing it, I need to go ahead and do it too. So I'm getting everything ready, and I still don't have a co-host. So I'm just sitting here like, dang, how can I like actually get this started? And then the pandemic happened. And with me sitting in the house with nothing to do but to go to work and to come back home, I said, if I'm going to start, I need to start right
Right
now.
now.
So yeah, at that point, I called my boy Law. I'm like, hey, bro, come be like my first guest on Chaotic Culture, man. I'm gonna go ahead and just get this started. We recorded one episode and we tried to record on Audacity, and it didn't work just because the file was too big and I couldn't figure out how to break it down. I wasn't a good at sound engineering as I am now,
Shout
but
out
I'm
Audacity, bro.
right. So I'm like, all right, well, you know what we can do? Let's just record straight onto Anchor, which is now Spotify for podcasters, for those who don't know. So
Yep.
I'm like, let's just go ahead and record straight on Anchor. So I went ahead and we did that first episode, and the rest is history. That's kind of how it started. Having to use one or two USB mics, having to use Voice Meter to kind of gauge the level of the mics. The Voice Meter app definitely came in handy before I got the rest of my equipment. So it was quite the journey from 2020 all the way up to now. I've almost been going 3 years strong, trying to get this podcast going, but it's been quite the journey.
I feel that. So like you going into this, right? Thank you for mentioning just the whole aspect, like the deep levels, the microphone. You mentioned the Voice Meter app. Like that's type of stuff that people don't actually think about. People think it's just as simple as, hey, got a podcast, let me go talk into this microphone, boom, I'm done. Go buy a blue
Mm-hmm.
microphone and I'm out of here. Nah, buddy. Like you gotta edit that shit. You gotta
Yep.
like there's marketing behind the actual podcast you wanted to go big. There's
Mm-hmm.
branding behind that stuff. Like you mentioned, you had your logo for a while now. Like
Yep.
bruh, I'm on my end with certain content and pieces that I'm using. They're like beats and stuff in the background. I made that shit back when I was in like college. This is like 2013, 2014, just sitting there not utilizing it. Like those things that you make back then, can really serve such a purpose in the future going forward, which is why it's so important for you to keep hold of all of these things that you're covering. Like, keep hold of that logo you made, keep hold of just all the information, and ultimately it might come to use one day.
No, you're absolutely right, man. There's stuff that I was pre-recording and I still haven't used yet for the podcast. And I'm like, I'm probably gonna hold on to this a little bit later, but even still, like there's just so much work that goes behind podcasting, and it's not just about hopping on the mic and just saying, "Oh, I'm gonna do this, yada yada," and then post it to RSS or posting it on a platform that can spread out to the different platforms. It's a lot more than that.
Yep.
As I said, I held on to that logo for quite some time, and then on top of that, I didn't know how to like make flyers until someone told me about Canva. So I'm like, okay, well, I can go on Canva app and start making flyers. That part is done. I didn't know how to actually record clips until someone told me about Headliner. I'm like, okay, well, let me go to Headliner and start making clips of certain episodes. There were certain things that I still don't know about podcasting even to this day, and I'm still figuring out as I go along. I don't know how to use OBS, but right now I got StreamYard, so it's like, hey, if I want to record an episode and I want to actually have a visual, I can record it on StreamYard, and then I can find a way to post it on YouTube later if I want to do that, or I can hold on to the clip and just keep it on the Patreon account, and it'll just be exclusive content.
Yep.
So it's a lot that goes in, and you just can't hop on the mic and expect to be like, oh, I'm gonna talk about this, this, and this. No, you have to actually like do the research on your subjects as well. Like, don't just sit here and think that you can like give an opinion when you have no knowledge of what you're talking about. That's the really important thing about podcasting, is that you just can't go up there and have a mic and say what you want, because I've seen a lot of podcasts that have been doing that, and maybe some of it might be for likes and reaction, but for me, I'm not trying to do it like that. That's for me, that's not genuine. I'm like, I want to be sure that I'm doing this the right way, that I'm talking to the right people, that I'm interviewing the right people, that we're talking about the right subjects regarding Black culture, and that at the end of the day, it's a product that I want to put out and make sure that it is viable for everybody to come check it out and to actually receive something from it, not just to react to it.
Hey, tag me in real quick because I want to speak to that last point that you just mentioned. Listen, you niggas are not funny. Stop it. That podcast that you think you made, no, stop. Bro, there's glory in getting a CDL, bro. It's fine. You can be that person. There's glory in that shit. It's fine, G. You don't have to be that guy. It'd be a lot of niggas who hop on and like think they interesting because they got that one friend that hype them up and be like, yeah, Bestie, you go do that. And then you listen to it and it's like, yo, bro, this shit is like watching paint dry. That's why, bro, like, not everybody podcast it fizzles out. Like, the cream rises to the crop is one of the best phrases that I've heard people say, which is why I'm sitting here talking to you right now. Like, your shit is 3 years strong. Like, and it's still rolling. Like, bro, you got new additions into this shit. You got like this is everything is coming according to plan, and it shows just based on the effort that you put into it. And I'm glad you're here to talk about this today, because it's like, this is something that other people could go back and listen to and say, like, you know what, let me go look into a Headliner app, let me go look into StreamYard and all that shit. Like, niggas don't be knowing about that type of stuff. Canva, I just found out about that last year, and bro, when I tell you that shit be booming, it's so much stuff you could do in there.
Oh man, absolutely. I got a friend who actually uses Canva to design all of her apparel and whatnot. She owns an apparel shop. It's called Next Level HBCU. Shout out to Maya. But she was like, hey, I go on Canva and I do this. I'm like, wait, you're using Canva for that, man? I was just using it for flyers. Man, hold on a minute. Now you got my gears turning, because it's like, what if I want to do some apparel on some Nelia too? Like, I want some merch. Shit, I'm looking at it now from a different perspective. So it really is, when you talk to people and when you get the knowledge that and the resources, you have to use that to your advantage as well. Like, it's really vital and important, and that's why I love talking about this, because I want to make sure that people know that the resources are out there. You just gotta either talk to the right people or search for them yourself, and sometimes you find them by happy accident. So, but at the same time, you got people like me who just want to share it. Like, hey, look, there's plenty of options, but this is what I do. If this works for you, great. If it doesn't, there's plenty of other options to go around.
Hey, man, look, and I just want to tell you like that, like, while I hand draw a couple of things here and there's a lot of Hubtaku related like flyers and stuff, bro. That shit was done in Canva, and it only take like maybe 3 minutes to do. So I'm looking at y'all flyers and stuff y'all posting. Them shits is mid, bro. Be better, do better. Like, it is what it is. And past that, I want to make sure we focus this back on you and giving you your flowers on that shit. the episodes that you did so far with Chaotic Culture, I've had the pleasure of
Mm-hmm.
listening in on a few of them, and I've had the
Mm-hmm.
pleasure of actually live listening. Like the R&B bracket one that you did was some stellar work, by the way. Like
Oh,
I'm
appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
I'm still mad as hell by the fact that niggas didn't give Next more credit for their song Too Close. Niggas tried me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but I want to say, bro, just because this nigga made a song about him and like the whole thing that's going on, I understand that it's creepy work. Hey, bro, and you in a club, please don't. But that's on fire. That shit gas,
Listen.
nigga.
Too Close is still my jam, you know, despite the content that's in that song. And it's crazy because when you're younger and you listen to it, you don't know what the hell they talking about. And then
Nope.
you get older. I'm 16, 17 listening to it again. I'm like, wait a minute. He talking about oh shit. Okay,
Like,
well, damn. All right, well, it's still my song, but
this shit's
yeah,
still a
it's
bop, but I'm like,
and listen, man, you're not the only one upset about that whole entire episode because I am still upset because the randomizer really, really did not like me this entire
no.
tournament, and it had me put Jodeci and Boys to Men in the
The
top
second,
16. I'm sitting here like, why are they facing off right now? This should be a finals matchup. Why are we doing this like right now? But and
it
I'm
made
still
for
upset
great
because
content
Jodeci won
though.
by one vote, but I ain't gonna go into that.
Jodeci won by 1 vote, bro. That shit was crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and they ended up winning the whole thing by like 2 votes when they went up against Drew Hill. So, but even still, it was like, man, by 1 vote they edged out Boys to Men, and I couldn't stand it. I'm like, man, ain't this some shit? Because Boys to Men got more #1 hits than Jodeci, and they got more bops than Jodeci. But you know what? Jodeci is that bad, so I'm not even too mad because I love Jodeci. Good Lord, I love Jodeci, but damn, that
It's
was
like,
not what I was expecting.
like, what can you really say at that point? It's like this shit kind of a travesty, but there's a sprinkle bit of you inside that's like, I kind of get him though. I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
My
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
is
that's
like,
that's kind of how I felt the entire tournament. But I'm like you, man. I kind of wish that uh Next did get a little more love. I was surprised that some of the bands that got the love that they did, like Rough Ends, I was like, oh man, they got more love than I was expecting. But I guess it really just depended on the matchup as well, because there were some matchups that were just like a little more lopsided than others, and then there were those that were
yeah.
kind of even. So it really just depends on what your preference is and what you were a fan of.
Hey, listen, we could just sit here with our superior music taste and keep it pushing, cause
Hey,
tough.
you ain't lying, bro.
But that actually brings to my next question though. Like you mentioned, Too Close coming up as a child, it being like, all right, like what were some of your comfort songs coming up as a kid? Like, and do they still stick with you to this day?
Comfort songs, comfort songs. Now when you say comfort songs, you mean like songs that I just listen to regardless, no matter what, at any point in time of the day?
It could be anyone. It don't even matter if you listening to it like just every once in a blue, but it still hit. Like you might have a song and it gives you that memory of like, damn, I remember this time right here. And now in your head, them endorphins kicking in, and you in them good old days of like just thinking about all of the shit that was going on. Like for me, that was Too Close was one of
Mm-hmm.
those because that makes me remember. God rest my soul, his dad. Like he used to play that shit like all the time religiously throughout the house. And
Mm-hmm.
then after that, we go somewhere like Chuck E. Cheese or something, us and our family. Or like this nigga used to really love Snoop Dogg. So that might be a thing.
Hey, so I'm gonna throw a song out there that is actually one of my comfort songs as a kid because I used to spend all of my time at the skating rink, even though I couldn't skate a lick until I turned 8. Um, Come On and Ride It, The Train by Quad City DJs. Anytime that song came on, it reminded me of when people used to get on the skating rink and literally like do the train, like come on, ride
On the
that
ride of the
train
train.
and ride it. And it was it's one of those things that it kicks my endorphins in, and I'm just like, dang, I'm back at the skating rink now. Like, dang, I need to get on somebody's floor right now, and I just need to do something because that's one of those songs that like I don't maybe listen to all the time, but the moment that it comes on, my brain goes back to all the skating rinks that were back in my hometown of Charleston, which are unfortunately now closed down.
Damn.
But it's it's one of those songs that kicks in, and I remember where I was, and I remember what I was doing as a 5 and 6 year old at the skating rink, just watching people, and then me hanging onto the wall trying to do the dances that all the other professional skaters are doing. It is one of those songs that like literally kicks in, and I'm just like, dang, yeah, I'm back. I'm back to when I was a little kid. Another song that I definitely want to just throw out there. This is a complete opposite side of the spectrum. Notorious Thugs by Notorious B.I.G. and Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Yes, sir.
Listen, anytime that song comes on, I'm like, I'm rapping right there with him. Trying to
Little
keep up
dangerous.
with Busy and Busy and Crazy is hard. Now Biggie and Lazy got those verses you can keep up with for the most part, but anytime Busy and Crazy come on, I'm just like, I'm just gonna sit here and listen, and I'm gonna try to rap with him, but it, my brother and we have a family friend by the name of Johnny, not the Johnny that I do the podcast with, obviously, but his name is Johnny Glanton. He actually goes by John, and he actually does like music within Atlanta and whatnot. He performs like he's like a pop-up band guy. Like he has a band that he travels with that does like pop-up songs and things like that. So
Nice.
but they used to come up with routines to some of these songs. Now, mind you, my brother's 10 years older than me, so I'm like 6 or 7 watching him and Johnny, as teens come up with dance routines to this particular song. So anytime that it came on, it was like I'm right back there as a 6 and 7 year old, like gaping at them, watching them do these dances and trying to follow the movements and then listening to the lyrics. And
Yeah.
Notorious Thugs is probably by far maybe my best or my favorite hip hop song of all time. I'm not gonna say. I mean, there's plenty more that could be better, but for me personally, that's my comfort hip hop song. Like you throw that on, it's a rap.
It's a
It's a
rap,
rap.
bro. Biggie was floating. Bone Thugs
Yes.
was floating. Like it was. That was. Would you say that was the best song on Life After Death?
Yeah, for me it was. It definitely was.
It,
Especially because Biggie's flow, as if for those who know, like really know, and shout out to Shock G. Shock G kind of broke down how Biggie's flow is, how it's usually like more swing.
yep.
Like you can hear when he raps, it's more swing style, even when he's not rapping at the when let me get my words together. When he is doing his raps, and even with the internal rap scheme that he has, he's still like, just as an example that Shock G used, he used More Money More Problems, B-I-G, B-O,
Yo,
P-P-A,
PA.
no
No.
info for the
For the
E-E-A. Like it's really, you can hear the swing in that. But then when the Notorious Thugs come on, you hear, oh, they're dangerous, ain't too many can bang with us, straight up we know Angel us, label us Notorious, and it's just like, oh, wait a minute, he changed up his whole fucking flow. So
yo, that shit was crazy. I'm not even gonna hold you. Like that man, he went full Bone Thugs with the shit, bodied it to the point where it didn't feel like he was pedestrian out there.
right.
And dare to say, I might say he had the best verse on that album. I mean, on that album, on that track, I might say he did.
It's real close between him and Busy, because Busy, anytime that Busy was on a featured on a track, like Busy would go stupid, but you'd have to catch like what Busy was saying, because he would just go so fucking fast, and it's just like, wait, what did he say? Wait, run that back. But as far as Biggie's verse is very clear, it's very concise, and it still flows with the rap flow that Bone Thugs came with. So it's like, okay, yeah, you might have a point. Though Busy still has the best verse out of Thug Love, which is their feature with Tupac. So like that ain't nobody touching Busy on that song at all. Like he starts off, well, it must be close to the Armageddon, Lord, and I'm like, oh dang, he talking that cash shit early. So yeah, Biggie probably had like the best verse on that song. I'm probably not gonna cap, but I still like Busy's verse just a tiny bit better. But that's just me personally.
You know what? I want to throw a curveball question. This wasn't even in my script or anything like that.
Okay.
If you could attribute Notorious Thugs to any anime moment ever, which one would you pick?
Oh man, that's definitely a curveball question. I'm trying to think of an anime moment where
Or actually, you know what? And if you can't attribute it to a moment, I'm gonna do you one better, because I believe you also are a fan of wrestling.
yes.
If you could label that as any anime character's theme music, which one would you pick? Either one of those two.
I'm trying to think. I gotta dig deep in my bag for that one, because man, Notorious Thugs like go stupid. I'm going to say like, let me think about this one, because it's real smooth, and it's real dark and dangerous. So you got to think of like characters that like that really pull up and they ready for shit to pop off.
All the static.
Shit. Let me think. I'm thinking recent anime, but I'm like, I might need to go further back.
It don't even, bro. I'm a fan of the oldies, so
Yeah, man. This might be a shoot. Dog, I might be stumped on this one, man, for the first time. Let me pull up, yeah, let me pull up my shit and let me make sure that I can think about this really clearly because it's such a unique song, and then there's so many unique characters. It's like who is ready to pull up with the smoke? Who's ready to like go to war if they got to? Who's ready to just kick back and then relax? I don't want to use like typical I don't want to do Cowboy Bebop because I thought about that, maybe Spike, but Spike is a little more smoother than that. It would
Like, yeah,
probably be a
nah.
different song. Yeah,
Spike.
so let me think. Who's just ready to just come out guns blazing and shit and not give a fuck?
You know what? Not to sway your thought too, but the first person that came to mind for me was what's shorty name? Revy from Black Lagoon.
You know what? I thought about Black Lagoon, but I skipped over it for some strange reason. But you might be right.
Yo, that might be
Cause
her shit.
yeah, that might be it, bro. Cause Black Lagoon, they can't. Oh boy.
Yo, I'm saying because it's like it's a perfect level of all right. It's hero esque, but it's like you still
Uh-huh.
coming in and fucking shit up, and it's not like it's you're not babyface cut John Cena type. Like it's a very Austin type, like a type of filler. I
Yes.
guess I'd say like that might be them personally. If I'm picking anybody, I'm probably picking her.
You might be onto something, bro. Cause yeah, as you said, it's very hero-esque, but it's not, as you said, it's not the not superhero baby face of the company kind of thing. It's not Hulk Hogan, it's not John Cena. It's more gritty.
Yeah.
And yeah, and Rebby definitely was always ready for war. So yeah, you know what? That might be the character, bro. You might have just hit a nail on the head here. I'm gonna try to think of another character in the meantime. While we talk about it, but that is definitely one that goes with that.
While you thinking actually too, that leads to my other question. It's like, I don't want to ask what's your favorite anime of all time. I want to know what's some of your favorites like really coming up or so. Like you mentioned a lot of the oldies.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to let me know what was those ones that Ked was watching, a young kid at the TV screen watching, say like Comcast on demand or wherever the case may be that you was watching it from. Let me know.
So I always like to tell the story. My first anime or the first cartoon that I ever watched before I knew it was anime was Voltron.
Fire.
Or yeah, or Beast King Golan. That's also one of the reasons why I'm a mech head. So it's one of those things where when Toonami literally first came to Cartoon Network, that was one of the shows that I watched because my brother was a Thundercats fan, but he grew up in the 80s. So Thundercats and Voltron were stuff that he's seen before, but he always loved. Meanwhile, it's my first time watching it, and I love Power Rangers. So when I see these lines come together to form a robot, I'm like, this is just like Power Rangers. Oh my gosh, and I'm hooked.
Yeah.
So Voltron was that, and then any show that came on Toonami, pretty much I would get hooked from there because obviously, I watched Sailor Moon, I watched Dragon Ball Z. Any show that came on to Toonami, I tried to get invested in regardless. And then of course when Gundam Wing came, then that at that point I was
Game
like
over.
hook, line, and sinker because again I'm a
Game
mech.
over.
So yeah, those were some of like the anime that I was watching as a young buck because again 90s baby. I've been there since the beginning of Toonami, so those were just some of my favorites when I was a kid. Obviously now we've got a whole lot more anime to dive deep into, but those were like the first few anime that literally locked me in as a fan of anime.
What's the most underrated mech anime? Like you being a mech aficionado, what is the most underrated mech anime you could think of and that you would tell niggas to get on like ASAP?
Mm, the most underrated mech anime is probably Out Noah Zero.
Oh, tell me
Um,
more.
yeah, it's now I haven't seen Out Noah Zero in a while, but I just remember the story behind it, and I watched it when it was on Netflix. I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, but Out Noah Zero was actually really really good, and it got me invested early on, and I watched the entire series. I think in a matter of a couple of days. So I always want to recommend that anime, and I'm probably gonna do a rewatch here soon because I haven't seen it in some time. But I just remember the feeling that it invoked for me when I first watched it, and I'm like, yo, this is a really, really good story. So that's definitely one that I will recommend now. As far as more recent anime, I'm going to say 86. If you have not peeped 86 at all,
Mhm.
you are doing yourself a disservice, because that anime is less about the mechs, even though mechs are included in the story, and more about the people and more about the struggles. Especially if you are a person of color, you can relate to their stories 100%. It is by far one of the best anime that have ever come out in 2021. And I highly recommend that if you have not seen 86, like, get ready for a roller coaster ride of not only emotions, but also just the way that they have crafted the anime. It's beautiful. It's the sound design is excellent. The way that they have the cinematography just behind the anime itself is like, wow. Am I really watching a series right now? This is not a movie. It is that good. So those are some of the more low key mech anime that I definitely will recommend for those out there who are looking for them.
When you get the chance, if you don't mind, after this interview, that I'll know is zero. Please send that to me if you can, because
Okay.
I've never actually heard of it before,
Mm-hmm.
but that shit sound like it's some gas based on how you speak into it. So like, I'm gonna make sure to check that out. Um,
Absolutely.
if I had to pick on my side, like a favorite, like not a favorite, but an underrated mech anime, I've said this actually in one of y'all's Shogo High rooms. Niggas don't put respect on Macross enough for me.
They don't. They really don't, man.
That shit
Um,
break my heart, bro. Cause
yeah,
that was
man.
like, dog, 80s. We talking about old anime that like really set this tone. And 80s, like while you had like a lot of mech related things back then, like it was very story driven because they didn't have a lot of the great effects that we got now back then for their regular shows. They
Yep.
had to lean into the character development. They had to lean into the storyline. They had to, there's a lot of the soundtrack was better
Mm-hmm.
on a lot of those back then. Macross is definitely one of those where it was like, fam, I watched every bit of this shit. I watched the original. I'm now thinking recently, like I should start branching out and watching some of the other like Robotech things and all that. But like that's one near and dear to me. Between that and between Full Metal Panic, niggas gotta respect it.
Man, you naming some good ones right now, man. But I do agree with you, man. Macross or Macross, however you want to pronounce it, Macross really does not get the respect that it deserves. And I remember when my brother had first, this is when Blockbuster was still a thing, and he had first rented Macross. And again, I'm 7, 8 years old, and we put it into the VCR and we watch it, or at least we watched one of the movies. It was definitely something that I was interested in. And granted, I didn't understand the plot back then, but as I got older, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure that I remember what happened in this movie. And I'm probably, if I could find it again, I'll definitely rewatch it. But it definitely hit with me. And then as a kid, you don't get a lot of the nuances that are in that show, or in that movie. So now as an adult, I want to go back and revisit and kind of just like indulge myself and try to figure out, okay, what did I miss as a kid?
Right.
What points of the plot were not all the way there when I was younger? So definitely highly recommend for those who do not know. Definitely check out Macross or Macross.
Yeah, bro. I be fucking shit up all the time, bro. As far as the pronunciation goes, and it is what it is. My thing is, this actually made me think of something too, right? So like, back in December, Hubtaku went to Anime Frontier,
Hmm.
and we watched there was a panel by Inside the Mind of a Blurred, and on that panel, like after the fact, we interviewed them, and they mentioned like how you were actually really in a mech and stuff like that. And the
Yep.
way that they were talking, it felt like y'all was like really tight knit with each other. Like y'all three really y'all kind of fucking knew each other. I wanted to know more about how y'all like actually came to be together or how you joined Inside the Mind of a Blurred. Just tell me more about that space.
And the way that I joined Inside the Mind of a Blur is kind of interesting, because I had first heard about Scuba Steve when I was listening to Worst Generation podcast before Anime After Dark had even been a thing.
Right.
And they were talking about him, and then I ended up following him on Twitter during that space, and it was like, okay, well, I'm learning more about who he is and what podcast he's got. So I started like listening to the podcast that he had, which was Inside the Mind of a Blur, and all the people that were on there. I'm like, yo, he's got a lot of people on this pod. Okay, well, shit. But at the time, I didn't know if I, wanted to be a part of it or not, because I'm still trying to, grow chaotic culture, and I don't know how I would feel being a part of another podcast, at least at that moment. But in 2021, in the summer of 2021, I decided, we Steve and I got closer as as the months went on. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna come to Texas. I'm just gonna pull up. And granted, I didn't know anything about DreamCon until I was in Texas, and folks like, hey, you going to DreamCon? You going to DreamCon? And I'm like, what's DreamCon? For some strange reason, I was like, it flew over my head, and then I remembered, I'm like, oh wait, this the con with RDC, and it was like, yeah, I'm like, damn, I'm not going, but I still got a chance to hang out with them for a little bit, and I actually went to Steve's house on the 4th of July, and we chopped it up, we talked, we spent 4th of July with his family, and then also shout out to Leak from Worst Generation. He was there
Shout out
too,
Lee.
and we was just drinking and having good food and whatnot. And then I ended up crashing there because at the time I was staying in Houston for the week, but I didn't feel like driving back because that's a 4-hour drive. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna just crash here and then I'll leave in the morning. But then I remember I had my equipment with me. I'm like, yo, we got to get a podcast episode. So we did a Chaotic Culture podcast episode, featuring Scuba Steve, and that's the epilogue. I believe that's the end of season 2, if I'm not mistaken. Still, I did that episode and I'm like, all right, bet. So after we record, of course, I start getting closer with all the people who are inside the Mind of a Blurred. And then at the time I had asked, you know what, at this point now I'm comfortable with y'all and I'm comfortable with speaking on the mic more. I had requested, hey, can I join? And Scuba Steve said, yeah, but at the point they didn't get back to me and whatnot. So I was just in there waiting. I'm like, okay, all right, well, it is what it is. I'm still cool with them and whatnot. It's okay if I don't get a chance to be a part of it. And then of course they had some people be in and out, and then had some people leave. So I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. And then I find out that Rob joins Inside the Mind of a Blur. I'm like, all right, cool, man. Yeah, they could definitely use your expertise on there. And then I find out Johnny's on there, and I'm sitting here like,
hey,
now,
nigga,
wait a minute. Why they ask you, but then don't ask me? And then I went back to Steve. I was like, bro, I asked last year, what's going on? So he
let
was
that
like,
nigga Terry
damn.
Bone. I know I look better than him.
I know. I was just like, bro, I literally asked you last year, and he finally said, oh, damn, my bad, bro. So then they added me onto an episode, and then the rest is kind of history from there. So that's how I got involved with Inside the Mind of a Blurred.
Hey, bro, shout out them, because one, that panel was fire. Two, I've been getting myself more acclimated with Inside the Mind of a Blurred. Fuck, words is beating my ass right now.
Hey, it's all good. It happens to me all the time too, man.
I'm getting myself acclimated more with Inside the Mind of a Blurred after meeting them at that panel, and two, just seeing you join the cut, seeing Johnny join the cut, everybody kind of kick in, and like the real community start getting a bit more tight knit. I'm like, you know what, let me keep my ears to this shit and see what's going on. And I've been thoroughly impressed. Like, between all of these facets of what y'all got going on, between fucking Chaotic Culture, and between what I want to talk about next, Shogo High, like, shit is crazy, bro. Like, it's impressive to see niggas come together on different platforms and make it work, and the content push forward. And it's really like an iron sharpened iron situation, because I'm seeing a lot of these different people actually want to do more work because of it, and just, I guess, want to better themselves because of it as well.
Absolutely, man. And I definitely appreciate that.
Man, so like, tell me more about that Shogo aspect too. Like, I remember how Shogo came to be. I want to know more about like when you were approached and like how you got brought in, and then how Ked the Closer then became a thing.
So with Shogo High, it was very interesting because after DreamCon, we're all on a high right now. And at that point, Johnny is actually getting ready to leave Analytical. So he's like, well, I kind of still want to do this and I want to do something of my own. So, of course, the first person he asked was Rob. And Rob said yes automatically. And then he came to me and he was like, hey, so I got something that I want to do. And I have this idea of doing like a community space for anime where we can bring back the feelings that we had when we were talking about shows like in high school, whenever we got around our people. And I'm like, anime related, man, you don't even have to ask me twice. Yeah, of course I'll do it. So at that point, I know that he had asked other people to join as well. And then that's how we got Tony and then Simone. And then we had, at the start, we had 2 other people, but things didn't work out. So it was like, all right. And then Simone took a break. So now it's just the 4 of us. And we're like, man, we just got to keep going. We got to keep going and just find a way to actually get this thing started and build that community and be more engaging with the community, because we see what Anime After Dark is doing. We see what Analytical is still doing. We want to be sure that we can come together on a day like Friday and invoke that feeling and still involve our community as well and continue to foster those relationships. So with that, we just started, and we come up on Wednesdays sometimes, like before the Friday before the meeting, and like we jot down some ideas that we want to talk about, anything that's anime related or geek related, and we want to make sure that we bring that to the forefront of discussion. And then we go on Friday, we get on Spaces, and we just kind of shoot. Now, the way that Ked the Closer came about, according to Johnny, is just because that if you've listened to the Chaotic Culture podcast, like I always close out the podcast and I always have a list of businesses and content creators that I list off, and then I talk about how be sure that you like, share, and subscribe, and go through that. But also I'd like to have those last moments on the pod before I get to that closing section, and I try to talk about how this is important or how this works and things like that. So even on Shogo High, when they heard my voice, it was like, no, you're gonna be the last person to speak before we end this podcast. I'm like, okay, then that's kind of how that happened. And then he got the whole closer beat from the Mets, and I'm just sitting like, damn it.
Yo, at that point I was like, nah, this shit is hard.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised by that, but at the same time, I'm just like, damn it, as much as I like to talk and as much as I am in the spotlight, I don't like the spotlight a lot. I just like doing the work, and I guess maybe that's the humble person in me, but I still, anytime that they put a highlight on me, I'm just sitting here like, man, all right, well, fine. I guess, if you're gonna put it on me, I might as well just go ahead and show out.
I mean, if you insist, I guess,
yeah.
I guess. Then proceeds to fucking wreck it. Like,
right.
Funny thing about a real nigga is the spotlight always seems to find it in a positive way.
Yep.
So it's no surprise that ended up falling to you, and it's no surprise that you continue to carry that torch, like, as you keep moving and maneuvering. It's a beautiful thing, bro. Like, I know I pop into those Shogo High rooms even more frequently nowadays too. Like, y'all niggas was trending recently. That's a big move. So I think, was it this episode you weren't on, this last one?
Yeah, this past episode I was not on because I was in Charlotte, but I did try to get on at the end. But Elon. I got some words, but
Big
I'm
Mus
sitting here like,
nah, nigga.
Yeah, I'm sitting here requesting. They accepted the request, and then I get bumped back down, and it says you are no longer a speaker. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on here? Like, I literally wanted to like say a few choice words, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna chill. I'm having fun. I'm technically on vacation. I'm gonna just relax. But yeah, I was a little pissed, but some of the girls that I was with, shout out to the house niggas, but they was just like, are they letting you up or are they keeping you from getting up? I'm like, no, it's not them, it's Twitter. And they're like, oh, so it's Elon's fault. I'm like, yes. So it was very, very frustrating that, granted I was enjoying my time, but I still at least wanted to come up, pop my head in the door and, say a few things. But unfortunately, the internet would not let me be great, and Elon would not let me be great that episode. So
it is what it is, bro. But like, it is what it is, honestly. Yeah. But unfortunately, that's just the name of the game. Elon been fucking the money up in regards to just Twitter and how things move regardless. Still we move.
Yes, sir.
It's beautiful. So like, that, moving on to my last point I wanted to actually bring up is, what is next in regards to Chaotic Culture, in regards to Ked just as a person? Like, what's next on the horizon for you, and really what's the ultimate goal that you're striving to shoot for?
So the next thing that I really want to work on is continuing to build Chaotic Culture, but try to get more prominent guests to actually be a part of the podcast. As you've seen, I was able to get Toasty Marshmallow on there, and I thought that was like an amazing thing that happened. I'm like, dang, I got Toasty Marshmallow. I got to get more prominent guests on here, but also want to continue to build that community as well. I want to be able to interview those who are within not only the anime community, but also just my local community as well, and those who are in the music industry on top of that, because music plays such a vital role in my life. So it's like, I want to be able to have those guests come in and chop it up real quick. There's one podcast that's actually going a little big right now in my area called the Off World Podcast. And granted, he does all of his stuff on YouTube, but he's got all of these music artists that are in the 757 area in Hampton, Newport News, and Norfolk and Virginia Beach. And it's like, I want to bring those guests on too. And also, it would be great if they were not only in the hip hop world, but also in the nerd world as well, because if they are great. That really hits the nail on the head for what I'm trying to do. So ultimately, it's to continue to grow the podcast, get more prominent guests, get more people to subscribe to the Patreon, obviously, and get better and stronger equipment for us to be able to record and then put the, more video content on YouTube and make TikToks and things like that. Like I'm taking it one step at a time, because I know a lot of people, like when they jump in, they already got the stuff ready to put on YouTube and to put on TikTok. But I'm a very, very slow and steady pace, but at the same time, I want to get more involved in that anyway. And I'm like, okay, I want to pick up the pace just a little bit, but at the same time, I don't want to overexert myself, because I did that a lot last year in 2022 when I was recording, and I was recording like back to back to back to back to back episodes. And with work going on and with, chaotic culture going on at that time, I overexerted myself and ended up having a panic attack. So it was like, slow down, bro. Like, it's gonna come, it's gonna happen. You just got to take it at your pace. So that's definitely something that I want to do as far as chaotic culture. As far as Ked himself, Ked would also like to get into some voice acting, man. I definitely want to use my theater minor and my theater experience and actually get into something that I enjoy, which is acting. I've always been a little hesitant because I didn't want to be that starving artist, but now I'm like, you know what? I'm not getting any younger. I'm about to be 32. I want to be sure that I, do what I loved since I was the age of 6. And if that means applying my voice to, cartoons or anime or commercials, I want to be able to do that. So that's what I'm going to be working on next, as far as me personally, like getting into an acting studio, getting my chops back up, making sure that I'm prepared. And whether it's live action or voice acting, that's to be determined. But I definitely want to, take a look into voice acting and making sure that that's something that I want to do and love to do, despite the fact that we know that voice actors a lot of the time don't get paid what they deserved. But still, that's something that I think would be a passion of mine, is to get back into that. And overall, man, just to continue to build my family, and to build this family within the anime in nerd and the music community. Like, I want to be sure that I keep my tribe close, and want to be sure that I'm supporting everybody and that everybody can do the same for me. And I want to be sure that we have those relationships to where if somebody, if they need something from me, I can give it to them without even blinking. Or if they need me to do something, it'll be, hey, just let me know when. On top of the fact that I definitely want to get more involved in everyone else, whatever shows that they've got, whether it's Weeb Uncut with animes, I definitely want to participate more in that. I'm still going to be an active participant in Anime After Dark, but I definitely want to work with them even more so too, not only for what I got going on, but just any way that I can get involved, because DreamCon last year, I ended up being the cameraman for the live Anime After Dark
That's major.
unexpectedly. So it was like, well, I'm here. Because I was rooming with them throughout DreamCon, and I'm like, well, I'm here. If T needed to take a break, I picked up the camera and I just went to work. So any way that I can get involved and build those relationships and build that tribe and to make the family that I've fostered stronger, that's definitely something that I ultimately want to do. But those are some of the ambitions that Ked has, at least for the foreseeable future. Now, things could change and my plans could change and my 5-year goals could change and whatnot. But what I want to do right now is continue to build chaotic culture, continue to build Shogo High, continue to help build Inside the Mind of a Blurred, but also get into voice acting, get more so comfortable with my voice again, get into, my acting chops again, being able to get on stage if I can, and also get out of Virginia.
I hear
Not to
that.
say that I don't love this place, but I've been here too long and I don't like staying in one place for too long.
I hear
So
that.
I've literally have been in the 757 area for, I'm going on 32 for 14 years. So because I came here for school and I never left. So it's like I want to be sure that I can go somewhere different. Like Maryland ain't but that, much further. So I think that what might be the next step is to get into that DC, Maryland, Virginia area, or the DMV area, and see how I can thrive in that environment. So those are just some of my short and long-term goals.
I love that, bro. Like, the one thing I wanted to walk back to real quick in the beginning, you mentioned something along the lines of just like in the 757 area, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
artists coming through. You wanted to speak to them. The last point I wanted to bring up was, who is the one artist or just like one body or one entity that you would want to bring onto your podcast that's like, when you did this, this is your magnum opus, this is chef's kiss, like, damn, I really got this person on right here. Like, I saw how you shot your shot with Toasty and it worked real time. Like, I want this to be your way for you to shoot your shot at that person.
Listen, man, I'm still in the 757. If I could find a way to get Pusha T on this damn podcast, then
Yeah.
that'll be it for me. I'm like, damn it, I don't have to do nothing else at any point in time. I got Push on here. I'm good. I'm great. If I could get Pharrell on here too, that would be great as well. But definitely Push is the one that I was looking at, man. Cause yo, that is my guy, yo.
Bruh, I feel every bit of that. I feel that.
Yes, sir. Oh, to circle back to Notorious Thugs, Mista from JoJo's.
Real. You know what?
Yeah.
So JoJo, I'm just getting acclimated to. So I'm trying to figure out who's who, what's going on with that. I can see what you mean by that.
Yeah, man. Definitely. If you haven't checked out part 5, which is Golden Wind, definitely be sure that you do so. But Mista is definitely. It took me a minute, but I'm like, oh, you know what? He was a gunslinger. Yep. That's the one. That's the one because he be real chill and then he'll turn up in a heartbeat. Yeah. That's my guy.
10, bro. 0 to 10, real quick. That nigga get real buck. I'm not even gonna hold you. So this is typically the last part of the interview. I always like to do this little segment I like to call giving people their flowers. So I want to talk to you, Ked, as a person right now and had this conversation. And I'm glad we're doing this now because this is something I've been meaning to tell you for a while. The value that you have on people around you, I don't want you to sit and feel like that shit goes unnoticed, underappreciated, or just doesn't matter. The fact that you're doing this inside the mind of a blur, the fact that you're doing chaotic culture, the fact that you're on Shogo each day, letting people up and talking to them, giving them a platform to speak, you are actively giving people an avenue for them to kickstart their own potential careers in content creation. You're actively giving people the platform for them to just get their shit off if they had a long ass day and they just need to say some shit, just vibe around with some folks, talk music, talk anime, just talk bullshit, like anything of that nature. You're a piece of that. You're an integral piece of that. I'm sure everybody, I'm sure the Johnnies, I'm sure that Courtney, I'm sure that fucking Tony, Simone, Rob, sees everybody. I'm sure that they're all feeling the same way about you on your team. I'm sure that the people who listen to Inside the Mind of a Blur, the people who listen to Chaotic Culture, I'm sure that they feel that same way as well. The people who subscribe to your Patreon, things of that nature, like, there's not a moment where you're moving and maneuvering and it's like, fuck that nigga, bro. Like, that nigga means nothing to us in this space, in this existence. We don't want him around. So I want you to feel that from those people, and I want you to also feel that for yourself. I want you to be able to go in and look at yourself and feel like, damn, bro, I love you. I love everything you're doing. I love everything you're standing for. You mentioned you had a panic attack earlier from balancing everything. Like, I love the fact that you actually had the foresight to be able to take a step back and slow down. That's important. That's self-care. That's major. I want you to be able to continue that self-care going forward for yourself, for you to know that, like, we want to see this shit. I want to see chaotic culture well into my 40s, bro. You talking about you 32? I just turned 30. Like, I want us to be 50, 60 years old talking about a most recent episode of this or that. Like, I want niggas to be rich just talking about a whole bunch of bullshit, shooting the shit about music, shooting the shit about, damn, remember back when Macross came out and niggas taking out their dentures and shit and changed it? Like, bro, this circle, I want everybody to succeed. I want everybody around me to be awesome. I want everybody to be great. I want you to be a part of that. So the one thing that I've always told myself is, if I'm stuck with me, I might as well fuck with me. That's something that I wanted to bestow upon you, and for you to think about yourself as you going forward as well. So, like, when you had them bad days, you had the moments where it's like, yo, fam, I just can't do it. I don't know what the fuck going on. Niggas is rooting for you, G. Please keep going.
Hey, man, words of affirmation don't always happen with me. So just to hear that, I appreciate that so much.
You're a real nigga, bro.
Sometimes I wonder, like, yo, am I doing the right thing? Like, am I in the right community? Because I don't often hear that praise. And sometimes, like, I question myself, like, anytime that I do my work, am I doing this for the right reasons? You know, do I want to keep going? And hearing that really, really touched me. And I appreciate that, bro, because I really needed that, especially in this moment, especially with everything that has been going on in these last 3 years, and even just within the last couple of weeks. You know, it's really, it's not only thoughtful, man, but I can tell that it's genuine. So I definitely appreciate that, man. Got
Hey,
me over
bro.
here leaking and shit. God damn.
Nah, bro, you good. Like, I wanted to make sure I told you that because, like, bro, I pay attention to the timeline. I pay attention to everything. I wanted to wait for the right time to be able to tell you this, and telling you this over a recorded thing wasn't like just like I would have told you this regardless. I just think it's important for you to get that message across. G, like in tandem, we talking about all these accolades you did. This shit started from fucking 2020, and that pandemic, we still rocking and rolling in 2023. Like that's a testament to how strong you are in that front. Like you talking about how like you got that gig when like niggas wasn't really giving you that job early on in the day. You still moving. Like dog, the cream of the crop rises to the top. Look at you right now, nigga. That shit is crazy, bro. My favorite thing to tell myself also is when I'm hanging on by. Let me get that shit right. Words be fucking me up today. My favorite quote is, "I'm hanging on by a thread, but I'm cut from a different cloth." I want you to move and maneuver in that same light.
Hey, I definitely appreciate that, man, because for those who may or may not know, man, podcasting is not easy. There are some days where it's like you want to high, and then there's some days you're just like, well, damn, do I like, I don't know if I want to do this. And then there are episodes that really get a lot of engagement, like the episode with Toasty, and then there's episodes that, like with my frat brother, that didn't get a lot of engagement. And I was sitting here just thinking, like, yo, like, what is it? How is it that I got so much engagement with this episode, but then I drop the next one and it's like I don't get barely any listens. This is kind of nuts. And you start questioning yourself a lot. But at the end of the day, I keep telling myself, yo, keep going, keep going. It's all gonna be worth it. You're gonna have those highs, you're gonna have those lows. Just keep battling. You're doing a good job, man. You're doing a good job. So I damn sure thank you for bestowing those words on me, because boy, did I need to hear that.
Listen, my boy, look. I wanted to make sure you knew that shit. I want you to know you are Hubtaku certified around these parts, G. Appreciate you and everything you stand for. We support you. We stand with you. We riding with you. We listening to your shit. We gonna make sure that you are known in this community. And I want to speak to the people listening right now. You too as well. If you feeling that same feeling, like bro, I feel and go through the same stuff as well. Like Ked feeling also, bro, you not alone in this, G. Like niggas second guess themselves every day. Niggas feel like, damn, am I really doing this? Is this even worth it? Everybody got those moments. But then they just randomly do something or come up with an idea in the shower or something. They're like, no, let me get this a shot. And it might bang off. And the next thing you know, it's like, you know what? I'm riding a high right now. It's the fluctuation of life. It sucks, but it's also beautiful in its own right. I'm going to keep riding this bitch till the wheels fall off, bro. It is what it is. Now.
Absolutely.
And bro, what we all going to keep doing, we all going to continue to make sure we keep our head in the clouds. Thank you.